I'm going
Back
to
back.
Cali.
Welcome back, you guys. And where is Paul George playing basketball in the year 2019? Where do you guys think he is going? That is the question we will get the answer to in a few weeks, and I cannot wait for July 1st. The NBA landscape could shift in a number of different ways potentially, and Paul George will be one of those players that could create the shift. Let's talk about the likely teams that could get Paul George and talk about some long shot teams also.
How you feel about Durant, man?
First, we got to talk about the team he just played on, and that is the OKC Thunder. They won 48 games, which was a disappointment from what people thought they could do during the preseason, but there's been hope that PG will re-sign. The Thunder can offer him the most money and years out of any team, so that is a positive. I keep going back to this quote from Paul George before the start of the playoffs about Andre Robertson being out. Andre being out definitely changes a lot. Andre is a big piece, and him going down, it definitely was a big blow to us. You've got to look at where we can be. Imagine what we would be if Andre was here playing with us now. Paul George is right. OKC was very good when Robertson was on the floor, and they had one of the best five-man defensive units in the league. But once he went down with an injury, their defense kind of fell off, and they never recovered. I know the season was disappointing, but I think OKC is still a great spot to be for Paul George if they can buy out Carmelo Anthony somehow and replace him with two below average to average role players. Melo being gone would simplify OKC's offense. The offense would be Russ and PG getting their shots while Adams getting his along the way. Not to mention, if Melo was gone, other NBA teams won't have an easy spot to attack in pick and rolls. Yes, OKC has other issues that don't involve Melo, but I will be picking OKC to make the Western semifinals if PG comes back and Melo is bought out. I liked the defense when Robertson was on the court next to George. I want to see what they could do in the playoffs. Okay, next up I have the Utah Jazz. Do they really have a shot at landing him? Just getting a meeting with Paul George would be a win for Utah because they are not exactly a marquee free agent destination. But Donovan Mitchell is looking to change that. He was the lead recruiter at Louisville, and he says he plans to have a conversation with Paul George on July 1st. Remember, Paul George is one of the players that convinced Mitchell to go into the draft, and they've talked throughout the season, so they are friends. Mitchell said on a podcast recently that this would be his pitch to Paul George. Why not play with us? You look at how we move the ball. We play with guys who don't care who scores the most, who rebounds the most. We play with guys who genuinely want to win. The Jazz will potentially have space to sign a major free agent, and Paul George could be that guy, but it's a huge wild card. If we are strictly talking basketball, the Jazz are a great spot. People always talk about, oh, this team is one piece away, or this team needs this guy to become an elite team. Well, the Jazz are actually one of those teams. They have a young star in Donovan Mitchell, they have the likely defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert, and productive role players like Joe Ingles and Jay Crowder. But they need one more piece as their offense tends to collapse at times. The guy that could help is Paul George. I think he'd take the Jazz from a 48-win team to close to 54 to 55 wins. That'd be a great team. The Jazz had the number 2 ranked defense in the NBA, and I don't think I need to talk too much about why adding George would make their defense even better. There will be plenty of nights where you'd have a difficult time trying to score on the perimeter and in the paint. As I said earlier, just getting a meeting with George would be a win, but I do not think he'll sign in Utah. It's fun to think about their potential though. The Lakers and Paul George have been connected since the 2017 trade deadline. It was reported that Paul George was hell-bent on getting to LA in a trade. Magic Johnson got fined $500,000 for violating the NBA's anti-tampering rule after it was found out that Lakers GM Rob Pelinka had made contact with George. In the 2017 summer, he let the Pacers front office know that he will not be re-signing there and wants to go to the Lakers. So there is a lot of history between the two parties, and they haven't even met for an official meeting yet. After all of this, it would be kind of funny if PG does not go to the Lakers, but they do have a great case to make for him on July 1st. The Lakers have space to sign Paul George and another major free agent, and that major free agent could be LeBron. That is big, knowing that you'll have LeBron on your team and you're going to be competing for a championship in your first year. I have talked about this before. Paul George will go to LA with or without another star. They have a lot of rising young players that are ready for a playoff push in 2019 that Paul George could be a part of. Or they could use those young players in a trade to get more veteran pieces next to LeBron. One thing I liked about the Lakers core this year was their defense. Usually young players struggle on that side of the floor, but the Lakers were solid in parts of the year. Adding a guy like Paul George would cut out some of their mistakes and possibly turn them into a top 10 defensive team. They have a lot of defensive potential that I'll be watching for. I just cannot wait for July 1st. Is LeBron and PG really going to happen in LA? Either way, if LeBron doesn't come with PG, there will be a lot of optimism for the Lakers' future with just Paul George and the Lakers' young core. Next, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. They won 52 games and had NBA Finals hopes, seeing how vulnerable the East was, but they were not able to get there. Paul George could be that guy to help them get to the conference finals when they are struggling to create offense, and he would bolster an already great defense. Now, he would be a cleaner fit on paper than LeBron would in Philly because PG is more of a complementary player and does not need the ball in his hands as much. There would be nights where Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are taking up majority of the possessions, and PG would just play defense and spot up for threes. There would be other nights where Paul George could take over the offense if Ben is struggling to create pressure at the rim. The Sixers were a top 5 defense this season, and they would become even harder to score on with Paul George. Just like with Utah, you'd have a hard time creating offense on the perimeter and in the paint. You would have Ben Simmons, Paul George, Robert Covington, Joel Embiid. That is a tough defense. But there has not been any reports or leaks that Paul George is looking to play in Philly as of today. It would be a great fit basketball-wise, and they could have the space to sign him, but it seems like this will turn out to be nothing. How about the long shot teams? Could he go back to Indiana? Pacers GM Kevin Pritchard came out and said that they would pursue Paul George under one condition, and he would want to know how he'd fit. That would be pretty funny if he went back to Indiana. That'd be a good team, but I seriously doubt he's going to even take a meeting there. The Houston Rockets, there was a report that came out that the Rockets would be aggressive in going after PG, but they'd have to do a number of creative transactions to make the money work. Hey, I would not doubt Daryl Morey's drive to find a way to do it, but I would say PG is not in Houston next year. Last up, I want to talk about the Cavaliers. Now, I have mentioned earlier that Paul George and LeBron are planning to talk this summer. PG and LeBron were very close to becoming teammates going back to last summer before the Isaiah Thomas trade happened. PG to the Cavs would have to be through a sign and trade. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would at least keep my eye out for it. And that's it for me. Paul George has a lot of nice options to choose from this summer, but I have a gut feeling he's going to re-sign in OKC. Of course I could be wrong, but that's just my feeling. Where do you guys think Paul George is going to go? Appreciate it if you made it to the end of the video. Cool videos coming out later this month, and I'll see you guys soon.